Hello, welcome to my video. I prepared a slideshow called The Superjuxtaposition of Nothing and Everything, the Perfect Paradox. Juxtaposition means putting two things next to each other, and sometimes it's an interesting pairing. Superposition is when one thing is in two places at once, or two states at once, kind of. And so I'm combining these two terms to kind of say that I'm putting nothing and everything next to each other, but I'm also saying they're in a state of superposition, kind of flipping back and forth between the two, and how they're not so different. Recently, there was the Sleeping Beauty paradox that I stumbled upon on YouTube, and it's this mathematical problem where it's a scenario where on a Sunday, Sleeping Beauty agrees to do an experiment, and the experimenter says, we're gonna flip a coin after we put you to sleep and wake you up on Monday if the coin is heads. And if the coin is tails, we're also going to wake you up on Monday, but then we're also going to wake you up on Tuesday. And on Monday, before we put you back to sleep, we're going to erase your memory. So when you wake up, you're not going to know if you've been woken up before, and you're not going to know what day of the week it is. And we're going to ask you, what do you believe the probability is that the coin was heads? So they flip a fair coin and tell her the experiment. She can remember the rules of the experiment, but not the times that she's woken up and put back to sleep if the coin is tails. And so the question is, they ask her when she wakes up, what do you believe the probability is that the coin was heads? And some people would say that the correct answer is 50%, because it's just a coin and it flips heads or tails. Other people would take into account the extra information that she doesn't know what day it is, and it could be a Tuesday. And if it's a Tuesday, then that means it's tails. If it's a Monday, it could be heads or tails, 50-50. So it seems like there's a third option. So there's a 33% chance that it was heads. But it's not so simple, and that's why it's a paradox, because you could stretch it out 365 days and say, what do you think the probability is that the coin with two sides, the fair coin, flipped heads when we flipped it? And she could still say heads, and it would be a decent guess. It seems bold, but you're still only flipping a coin one time, and it could be heads. So just because you're asking her 365 days in a row, does that influence the probability, like the correct answer that she should give? And I think that to truly understand the correct answer, you would need a quantum computer, basically, to calculate the multiple worlds of the tails universe and the heads universe, and give some sort of probability in between 50% and 0%, or I like to say 25%, or 33%. 25% in the example where you go on a million days in a row in the tails universe, and it goes down to a probability of 0. But then you still have the argument of 50%, so maybe 25. But also, if you take the average of 33% and 50%, it's 42% approximately. Um, so I thought about this for hours, and I couldn't. I would be firm in my belief that it's a half. The probability is a half, no question about it. And then I would keep thinking about it, and I would be like, I'm sure it's a third. And then I would keep thinking about it, and I would flip back and forth, and therefore I think it's in the middle somehow. Um, you know, so go research that on your own. But that is what led me to thinking about black holes and the Big Bang and nothing and everything and God, because nothing, something coming from nothing, is in a sense a paradox, or the story of Jesus, a God that was mortal, is a paradox. A man who was a god, or a man walking on water, or a virgin giving birth. All of these different paradoxes or contradictions. I've written about and talked about. There was the Champions Chess Tour that just happened. It was a really good event. It's still happening, actually. The reason I bring that up is because we are consciousness giants. We are, I prefer that term to human beings, consciousness giants, because basically the universe contains parts of it that are conscious. And I was just reading Everything is Fucked by Mark Madsen, and I don't like the book, but he did point out that consciousness directs existence. And I thought that was a very profound statement, that if you think of yourself as, oh, I'm just a person and this is my life, like blah, blah, blah. But if you think about yourself as the pivotal role of the universe is, like the pivotal force of the universe is that consciousness, it's not just randomly happening. Consciousness can influence the structure, the ongoing creation or structure, restructurization. You can imagine us getting so sophisticated that we could truly start to just form matter in the way that we want it to be, to the point where we get it much better than it is now. Assuming we survive, and assuming we're the only, or we're the best at it, and that there's not aliens like hiding, from us. But it's a tremendous responsibility, and you're a consciousness giant. You have like maybe a rock is a little bit conscious, but it's nowhere near. Like you might be 100 times the size of a little rock, but you're a billion times the consciousness of it. Even if it is consciousness and panpsychism exists, you are massively conscious, and you have this huge power to actually make a decision and then bring it into reality. Not saying we have the ability to do that currently on a grand scale, but it is theoretically possible if we had the technology and the finances figured out, and the energy conservation to do it. I don't know. But a well-structured universe would be like, I thought this chess event was well-structured. The candidates knew who they were. They knew how they qualified. They showed up on time, and they know what the prize money is. Some of the announcers who aren't good at chess were good at interviewing the people, and then the smart chess players, like they added one smart chess player to the commentators, so the commentary is better. And then they took one of the girls who didn't know as much as the other girl, and they made her like the person who kind of goes out and interviews them in an emotional way, and she's really good at that. So like everything is evolving and restructuring around chess to make it more popular, and this event is like a really good, you know, example of the universe working well. Um, but I want to talk about nothing a lot. So nothing here has I put a capital N because, and one of the words I might say is true nothingness. Like if I wrote a philosophy book right now, I would definitely talk about true nothingness. True nothingness is impossible. So when Kevin Garnett yells out, nothing is impossible, it's like that I'm saying that, but I'm also saying that true nothingness, like the state of no existence, the state of unexistence, forever, like nothing ever happened, is happening, or will happen. That ship has sailed. Like that is impossible. It's impossible because something is occurring right now. True nothingness is impossible. So, yeah, on the one hand, it means, yeah, you can do it, you know, nothing's impossible, but it's also a property of nothing. And then I would say that God is a property of nothing. And if you think about the word property, like heat is a property of fire, but God, in order for that to be see, there's dual meaning in nothing is impossible. And there's dual meaning in if I say God, or if I say God is a property of nothing, what I'm saying is nothing, true nothingness, has a property in it, inherent to it, called God. And that is what makes everything from nothing, is like God exists as a property of nothing. And but then you can look at it from the other way of saying, well, who is God beholden to? Like, who does God belong to? Well, no one, nothing. Like, nothing owns God, right? Nothing is more powerful than God. So it's like, hold on, who is God really? Like, because it's another paradox because, you know, you can say nothing is perfect with quite a lot of confidence. Um, but if nothing is perfect, well, then something is perfect, and it's called nothing. Like, nothing is what is responsible for everything. So, like, even that sentence I just said, if you're listening closely, it's like, you know, nothing is responsible for your suffering. Blame nothing. Now, you could look at me saying that as you have no one to blame, like but yourself, or you know, uh, you know, be a good soldier. But I'm literally holding nothing responsible. I'm saying the true nothingness is to blame for everything. And you could say, well, nothing can create the creator. Like it's always going to be a paradox. Like, well, how did God create himself? How is God outside of everything, but also inside of nothing? Because God can do whatever he wants. Um, God can do all things, whether they're possible or impossible. Like God, that's a property of God. Is to always win, basically. Um, and yet, he the the everything. If you focus on everything for a second, so imagine everything, right? I'm talking about a concept of every single thing. So, like a big circle with everything inside of it. And then you say, well, what about if I punch a hole in that circle and go on the outside of it? Well, now you need another circle outside of that, and now you're back in everything again. But it's constantly expanding outward, and that's why I think the universe is expanding outward, is because I think the universe is a conceptual reenactment of nothing creating everything. And the nothing, um, like they say, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It was there the whole time in a tiny. Scientists tend to believe that there was, uh, in a very small, tiny, like as small as it gets, there was everything, and everything exploded outward, and every single particle and quark that we see spread about the universe and still spreading was there in that tiniest point of nothing at all, right? Because that's as close as to nothing as you can get, is uh, no universe, and the tiniest possible universe becomes the largest possible universe, just by the property of what it was, which was nothing. Um, so I think another thing that sparked this thought is I was listening to a comedian who said, "So you don't believe in God? What do you believe in? You believe in nothing?" And then he kind of like pointed out that the belief in nothing and the belief in God are the same. Like he did it in a funny way, but um, you know, this one's like emotional. Nothing more. I was just experimenting with sentences, but um, I'm really interested in the relationship between nothing and everything, and I think that the thing they have in common is God somehow. God is the ability to go in both directions infinitely. He always was, is, and will be. So he's the trifecta of the past, present, and future. He's the transcendent property of nothing and everything. That's the beauty of God. The transcendent property of nothing and everything. Now, I have my questions. I don't have all the answers at all to the Sleeping Beauty problem, or to the Big Bang, or the Christian Bible, or any religion. All that, because the truth is, I know so little. Because even these words that I'm playing with have grown from other words that, in order to truly understand nothing, you would need to look at the Greek prefix and or word, and the you know you would have an even better understanding. Um, but one thing that occurred to me is, so when I'm talking about nothing and everything, one of the ways to look at that is zero and infinity, and zero is a big O. And Alpha, or God said, I'm the Alpha and the Omega. And the Omega is a mega O, or the absolute biggest circle you can draw, like the outside, the outer rim of the universe, or this dot would be like the black hole, or like the tiniest nothing before the Big Bang, like um, I think I have a picture of a eyeball, but it's like God is on the outside as far as you can go, and still going further, and then He's also infinitely hidden in the nothing. And we, the Holy Spirit, if you Google that, is said to be the force of God. And in my opinion, it's almost like a battery, like negative and positive. It's like an atom with the electrons in the nucleus. Like God is the matter, and then we are the antimatter. We are we exist in the interference pattern in the iris, or whatever. You know, I mean, I just see connections with all of this stuff. I always try to make sense of it. Like, oh, the answer to the universe is 42 in Hitchhikers to the Galaxy, and everyone's arguing about, is it 33% or 50%? People are writing papers saying it's 33%. Then the Sleeping Beauty, people are writing papers, it's 50%. You add up the percentages, divide by 2, round to the nearest percent, it's 42. So I'm like, is that a connection? Probably not, but I'm always working on that problem in the back of my mind. The Sleeping Beauty problem will always be running as a program, like an algorithm. There's an algorithm in my brain that's running this problem in the back of my mind, so that in the future, if I hear something about probability, like a new discovery, the quantum of probability, I will apply it to my Sleeping Beauty problem and then solve it later, like 10 years from now, potentially. But it's just for fun, It's just a YouTube video, but then I started really getting into it. I made this guy with AI. I've been trying to slay smaller dragons. Instead of trying to think of myself, basically, I created an ideal version of myself, which would be Elam, the Dragon Slayer from my story I wrote. And I said, okay, I'm going to be like Elam. I'm going to slay the biggest dragons ever, like corruption or whatever, tolerance. And I failed, because it's paralyzing. A real dragon looking at me I wasn't ready. But this guy, I said white tiger dragon, and it made this, and he looks a little more friendly, a little easier. If he turned nasty and you had to fight him, it looks like a little bit of an easier fight. So I'm trying to slay little dragons, like go to the gym and whatever. Another thing is, if you look up, like, can we create matter? Google will tell you no, it was there at the Big Bang. Can we create nothing? Can we create anything at all or nothing at all? And the answer is no. You can't get to absolute zero, it says, without infinite work and a violation of the laws of physics. So, God could work infinitely. That's one of the things He can do. He can handle infinity, and He can also handle, therefore, absolutely nothing at all. Well, that actually didn't sound right, saying He can handle nothing. But I did say absolutely nothing at all. Absolute true nothingness, I should say. He can exist inside of the void of existence, It's just so cool, the poetic nature of thinking about what God can and cannot do. Okay, so one other thing is when God, like if you think about Jesus being God, that is because, in my opinion, everything has to contain nothing. Because to true everything would contain nothing at all. You would have a car over here, a girl over here, a philosopher over there, a computer prison over there, and then you would have nothing over here. And the nothing would be absolutely 0 degrees, no molecules moving. It would just be absolutely nothing. Let's say you put it in a box and you called it the nothing box, and there was nothing there. But the problem with achieving truly a state of it, having everything, like the concept of thinking about everything at once, immediately creates a void within everything. And the void is reacting to the thing next to the void, however big the void is. And it kind of voids the nothing. So it's the negation of negation is the creation of creation. So, nothing, it can't exist within everything, and yet it must for everything to exist. Everything does exist, or you could say, you could say that something exists. Nothing does not exist, and everything doesn't exist. Like you can say, nothing is impossible, and everything is an illusion, but something exists. So people say that all the time. Everything's an illusion, right? But, you know, the universe, that term, some people talk about a multiverse, and then you have a multiverse here and a multiverse there. But then I can draw a bigger circle around all the multiverses and say, okay, I have one universe, because that's what I mean by uni and verse. And then you can have as many multiverses as you want, but we're all part of one universe. But that belief or that concept is illusory, I guess. Um, so because of the nature of God, his ability to play the interplay between nothing and everything is what God can do, and he can basically what I'm trying to say is that it goes infinitely in both directions. So if you have a true state of everything, inside of that, if you would have to have a true state of nothing. And inside of the true state of nothing, you would have to have another inner state of everything. But then, in order to truly be everything, that everything would have to start expanding. And in order for it to truly be nothing, that nothing would have to be contracting. So you would have this infinite line of everything's and nothings. And on both ends is God, and we're somewhere in the middle. That's why it's a super juxtaposition of nothing and everything, and it's the perfect paradox is God creating Himself. This is what I wanted to get to. Jesus. Okay, so in order for God, let's say nothing created God, right? Because you can say, nothing caused the first cause, nothing created the creator, nothing made God. God made Himself. Many people believe this statement. So, but if true nothingness, like nothing with a capital N, if that is what actually made God, God then made everything, right? Because nothing made everything, including God. And then the God in the nothing creates everything, but in order to truly create everything, he has to create himself because he's part of everything. In order for everything to be everything, he has to create himself. When he creates himself, um, that's the Jesus, in my opinion. That's the other God. That's why there's two. That's why there's the first Father. So Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. It's God. It's the Father and the Son. It's God and Jesus. And then when people look at the Son, like with Jordan Maxwell, yeah, it's the Trinity, and this is like it's like triangular reasoning. Like everything contains nothing, nothing created God, God created everything. It goes around and around. I'll come back to that. But Jordan Maxwell, he says there's four gospels, there's four seasons, there's the Son of God, and there's the sun shining light. And he points out all these linguistic similarities between the story of Jesus and the astrological observations. And he tries to, in my opinion, take away from Jesus by doing this. But I think it should only add to his divinity, because if God really did create himself in such a way that he exists in a state of superposition between mortality and immortality, um, the Father and the Son, the first and the last, he can, he's the zero that is having mitosis, splitting into infinity. Infinity in this scenario would be a representation of nothing becoming two nothings um, by itself. But so yeah, instead of thinking that they base the story of God, like, oh, let's tell you a bedtime story, on the observations of the universe, I think it's more that God based the story of the universe on the observations of his Son or himself. So, because if you really think, like, if you posit for a moment that Jesus really is God, well, what kind of God would he be if it wasn't the case that the stars bended around him? That all the stories from the Bible can be attributed to constellations or seasons or um, things like that. Like, why wouldn't that be the case? That the whole universe would bend to one man's will and life, Um, I think that's equally, if not more probable, than the logic of, oh, well, I guess Jesus wasn't actually legit. It was just a story based upon the stars. Well, it's like, how do you know that the universe isn't a story? Because the the I'm explaining the Big Bang. I'm explaining nothing and becoming everything. The paradox of your existence is that, how did you come to exist if not God? If and how did God come to exist if not from both himself from himself as a property of nothing? Like, nothing can do what God has done. It's like a tense of God. Um, yeah, but I like to think of idea that, maybe um, maybe God is still learning, or maybe we are in the process of creating him, um, stuff like that. But I will always come back to the fact that we could just have the inside of this black hole throughout the whole universe, nothing ever getting out, no light, no matter, no energy, just nothing. And the fact that we have anything at all is, and the nature of the anything at all, and what we can do with it, it provides evidence that nothing contained or nothing created everything by using God to do it. Like God is the agent of nothing. And like the president of everything. So I'm not going to doubt uh, his abilities. And I think that Jesus is that. He's a form of that God. And I think that we are we only exist because we exist in that the Holy Spirit of the in between the Father and the Son is is enabling us to live. Um, like I think the divine power of God to shape reality, to drive or direct existence, as Mark Madsen would say, that power was given to us. We were made in His image. We don't have all the power, but we have a sliver of it. And in my opinion, a sliver of infinity is still infinity. It's a fractal of God. Every consciousness giant that you come across. Some people say to know everything. Well, see, I'm tongue in cheek here, kind of, or it's always dual meaning. So I'm saying to know everything is to know nothing, meaning if you truly studied that circle that has every single concept in it, everything in it, one of the things has to be nothing. Therefore, you would know nothing suddenly. And when you know nothing, you know God, because God would say, Jesus would say, you say you see, therefore you're blind. Like, until you come to me as a child and say, I know nothing, please teach me, Lord. Like, you don't know me, you don't know Jack, right? Um, so then you start to know God. If you truly knew God, if Jesus was your best friend, you would know everything, or like you would be able to know anything. You would just ask him. Um, like the all-knowingness of God, uh, it has a relationship between nothing and everything, right? You see what I'm saying? Like like to know everything is to know absolutely nothing, and to know absolutely nothing is to know everything. Because if you truly knew how to create absolute zero in a lab, or how to capture true nothingness and study it and appreciate the properties of it and how it created a big bang, um, or how it didn't just stay the way it was forever. Like, why is nothing stagnant? Everything changes. Nothing, people say this all the time, nothing lasts forever. So that state of true nothingness would have to last forever. So it is. It always has been, it always will be. Everything is nothing at all. Like everything, nothing is everything, and everything is nothing. Uh, it's all the same. It's all divine. It's all part of the vine. I'm the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing, Jesus said. You can do nothing. But with God, all things are possible. Anyway, this reminds me of the human eye. And this is me doing the math of the Sleeping Beauty. I do have a rebuttal to the one guy said it's like reaching in a bag of balls and one of them's black and all the others are white, and then you're saying there's a 50% chance that the one you pick is the black one or whatever. But it's more like a double barrel shotgun with a million shotgun pellets in one barrel that are white and then one black pellet in the other barrel, and you're choosing between the two barrels. And it doesn't matter how many bullets are hidden behind the second barrel, the coin flip is still 50% because it's just a fucking coin. You're just flipping it one time. You should get heads 50% of the time, regardless of how many times you ask the question. But it's like the observability of the question. When you wake up in the hypothetical Tails universe, it seems ridiculous to assume it's a Monday and that it was heads 50% of the time. Because it could be a Wednesday, it could be a Friday, it could be in a Tails universe. You don't know which universe you're in, because even if it's Monday, out of all the days, even if it's the very first day, it could still be Tails. So why would you say heads is 50%? Seems bold, but I can do this all day, and I could argue either side. And so leave this video and study it, and return when you realize you know nothing. And when you know nothing, you start to realize you don't know whether God exists or not. And you don't know whether you believe in him or not. You don't know whether he's mad at you or not. And then you start to get afraid. And the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So one thing I was playing with is the idea that if I have 2 apples and you have 2 apples, how many apples do we have? Well, out of all the apples, if there's infinite apples in the universe, if there's just a planet of apples somewhere with uncountable infinite apples being generated, and you look at the number of apples we have as like a fraction, like out of the total apples, then we're not really doing anything at all. They're just 0. Anything divided by infinity is 0. So I was playing with that, but I've also played with, and many mathematicians have played with 0.9999. Like basically what I'm saying is everything is just an expression of nothing. Like nothing can express itself in infinite, unique ways. Is a coherent statement. I'm saying nothing can do that. It can't be done. And yet, it's true. I can mathematically prove that 0.9999 is 1, because 8 out of 9 is 0.8888. So 9 out of 9 is 0.9999. But 9 out of 9 is also 1. So it's the act of splitting something in half. It's the act of splitting 0 in half that's creating the infinity. Nothing exploded into everything by splitting in half. Perhaps. I don't know. but it's recursive. Oh, and then another really interesting thing is I've been thinking about containers a lot because I was thinking everything is a container, right? You want a container that contains everything. You want a set of all sets. But if you have the set of all sets, which was my Google interview question that I couldn't do, and maybe I did get that one right, but it wasn't good enough. But the set of all sets is an impossibility because you need to put that set within itself. It needs to be a self-contained set. So God, in order to be God, had to contain himself. Like, and that's what Jesus is. That's the containment. Jesus is the self-containment of God in the set of all sets. The sun set. You know? And you can say the Egyptian god of Set, but whatever. I'm telling you that the set of all sets, the sun of all suns, like the light of the world, E equals mc squared. Which I don't fully understand, but it's Einstein showing the relationship between light, the speed of light, matter, and the energy of the two interacting. I think I'm starting to understand it more. Yeah, like it's so poetic to say, like if I said, he who can destroy destruction or create creation, it would be a capital H and I'd be talking about God. There's no one else you can say who can do that. Like he has this ability to be more poetic in his usage than any other being. This is a juxtaposition, an example. This is a Fibonacci sequence. This is AI editing this image. And I've made a video of God's Imaginary. I'm going to try to wrap this up. Yeah, something, therefore. So what do we have? We have something, right? We can argue about what exists and what doesn't, other than something exists. There's something going on. Whether it's illusory or whatever, it's a simulation or it's not, it's something's happening. And from that something happening, we can make deductions or inferences. Yeah, I bet you this is kind of how the universe works, how an atom works. Oh, okay. Bob Lazar, he said in a YouTube video, he said, in a classified document about religion, aliens referred to human beings as containers. And I thought, if this were true, what would we be containers of? And he even said the word souls, perhaps. And, maybe we are, but what's interesting is, everything is a container because it contains all things, and then what it contains is nothing, so I don't know, there's the word container, I was trying to work that in as well, but it's kind of hard. I already said all this. Pretty cool. Recursion. Recursion is like in action is this in a program. It's like a tree leaf. It's basically saying do this for every line spread out 7 times. And then each of those lines spread out. So this would be the nothing. And then it creates a bunch of nothings. And then all the nothings create everything, which still contains a bunch of nothings. And then we exist somewhere in the tree of life. Yeah, it's a mystery. I don't know. And then so I was thinking about the outside of the sphere of the universe and the inside, like the center. But I was also interested in ancient cultures doing a spiral because, maybe there's, that's one way to get from the outer rim to the inside. You can spiral there, and that actually has, because my version, the one that makes the most sense to me is a bunch of, like a recursive eyeball, basically. So it would be another one of these inside here, and part of another one and another one. So you would have a line and a dot, and then basically like the target symbol before the Mandela effect. And this is the pineal gland, and it actually looks like the eye of Horus. Oh, and then the sphere, right? We call it hemispheres in the brain, but also the if the zero becomes infinity, it has goes through a process of mitosis, maybe it, I don't know, I forget where I was going with that. I made this slideshow a couple nights ago. It made sense at the time. Something about dividing a sphere in half. And generally I'm a creationist, but I saw a really good example of evolution with different mammal bones of all these, it was like a common ancestor of like a bat and like a man or something. But I do believe in God, because even if evolution is real, you would still need to come from nothing. And I think without the agent, the actor, the director of God, you can't maybe we're the actors and he's the director, right? I don't know. My favorite thing in the universe is just this type of a cat. I'm pretty sure that's my favorite thing. God bless you. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there. Let me know if you like this and you want to hear more. I do have some antics, some interesting stories about um, getting arrested for crazy stuff. So if you want to hear about that, let me know. If you found any of this interesting, let me know. But I'm gonna keep this video reasonable, and then I'll go off the rails on the next one. So God bless you. Have a good night.